about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So if some of you guys are getting frustrated, getting ticked off, I hear you. I'm feeling that way too. And, sometimes we don't know why we're stressed. Sometimes we don't know why we're anxious. The news is on, or we look at our checkbook, or we go grocery shopping, or something's up. But I've been very, very frustrated about all the discussion around Biden. I don't know if you guys have heard this Biden survival strategy that Axios had suggested for Biden to recuperate after his debate. And I think the reason why I'm ticked off is, as a physician, I want to cure things. I want to fix things that aren't fixed. I want to prioritize what needs to be prioritized. And I want to address or triage what needs to be addressed first. And it seems to me that right now, what is, and I get it, I'm not naive. I understand this election is a big election. But it looks like people are more worried about how to make the candidates look votable or electable versus what this country needs. And I'm kind of frustrated by that. It's kind of scary right now. And I don't want to sit here and cry doom and gloom and, this country is headed for disaster. But we're in trouble. This is the best country in the world. I love America, and I will fight for its freedom. And I am grateful for all of those who have sacrificed for this country. And it's the greatest country ever. But we're in trouble. And when our leader is looked upon as not, the most healthy commander-in-chief, it makes me very, very nervous. It makes me nervous for him. It makes me nervous for his family. It makes me nervous for the country. And it also makes me nervous for the democracy as a whole, because what is our primary goal as Americans? To represent America. You want whoever you are. This is a representative democracy where we elect representatives to represent us. And if we don't feel we're being represented, or we don't feel our needs are being met, and who we've elected is doing the job we need them to do, then our democracy falls apart. And so when you look at the strategies and the focus, it starts to kind of make you scratch your head. Now, this isn't a criticism of Axios. This shows where politicians are putting their focus right now. So the Biden survival strategy, according to Axios, means 1, dismiss the bedwetting. Now, I don't know if he bedwets. And as I said, I have no problem with the president having physical ailments. If somebody has, such as FDR, such as Greg Abbott, if a politician has a medical, physical issue, they can very easily still be qualified and still do their job as long as they have appropriate mental health and mental capabilities. It's the mental capabilities I worry about. And I worry if any physical incapacity affects their mental capacity. And so somebody losing their urine, you take me to a comedy club. If it's funny, trust me, I'm going to pee on myself. I mean, that's not, look at how many people have sharded, right, during this norovirus outbreak. Okay. That stuff happens. But the fact that this is what we're talking about, our president being a bedwetter, that's not a good look. That's not a good sign. Okay. This shouldn't be, it's really gone too far. They say to squeeze polls for juice. Squeeze polls for juice. Okay, it baffles me that our country is so split on who would be a good president. I mean, I don't know if you remember the Ronald Reagan Mondale election where, it was so obvious that the country wanted Ronald Reagan. We don't seem to have that sort of, we're Americans, we're on the same page. It's about border security. It's about the economy. It's about our schools. It's about our environment. It's about common sense stuff. But I mean, really, we're at the point where we have to squeeze the polls for extra juice for either side, for Republicans and Democrats. It blows my mind we're on that opposite side of the spectrum. Just like with the Supreme Court, doesn't make sense why it's so partisan. You would think the Constitution is pretty obvious, and I understand there might be some, things that are open to interpretation, but it just seems to be always so, partisan. And that's not the way this is supposed to be. Common sense is supposed to rule. They say we need to warn of chaos. So I think that might be, they're trying to say there's going to be chaos with Trump. It looks chaotic now, so I don't see the chaos. I don't see there being a calm. They're saying warning of it. You mean it's going to get worse than this? They say limit dissent. Now that's up for interpretation. Limit dissent. This is America. We want to hear your concerns. I don't know if you guys have ever run a company or if you've ever run a team, but you don't want a room full of kiss-ups. Okay, if you've watched The Boys lately, you see Highlander doesn't want it either. All right, you want to know what needs to be fixed. If everybody's like, oh, Dr. Daliah, your show is fantastic, that doesn't help me. Right? I will listen to your feedback after the show. Okay, I get it. Yes, I am open to the feedback, just not now while I'm on air. I understand there's a lot of feedback. Thank you. But that's what you need to improve. If you're not in medicine, you always want to know, is there a better treatment? You want to hear the dissent. Limit the dissent. That makes me a little nervous. Keep elected leaders close. Get the donor class to chill. Prove vitality and engage the media. Now, I don't, I'm sure this strategy is going to be dissected by media pundits and all that, but prove vitality. You shouldn't have to prove vitality. It needs to be obvious. When you're a leader, you need to be able to smell it, taste it, hear it, see it. That you shouldn't have to prove that. And then ignore the media. Now, I get that the media could do yellow journalism, but if there are some issues that are going on, like our border, somebody's got to listen. We don't ignore things when we're CEOs. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our Fantasy Football Pocket Guide for Beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at X, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So I am being told that a fifth of our Gen Zers are classified as NEETs. Now, I think the Gen Zs are super neat. I got Gen Z kids. I like the Gen Zs. I think they are neat. That's not what NEET stands for. This classification is a little intriguing. According to the International Labor Organization, a fifth of individuals aged 15 to 24 in the year of 2023 were classified as NEET, meaning not in employment, education, or training. NEET, not in employment, educated, or training. So not having a job, not working towards having a job, not in school. So what are these 15 to 24-year-olds doing? Now, I know a lot of Gen Zs, and they're out there. They're working, they're busting their butt. I'm very impressed. I know a lot of people make fun of the Gen Zs because of these articles. And yes, there are swaths of, some of these populations doing things. But I mean, I've known other populations to also have their share of that. But this is a large number. A recent study from credit reporting agency TransUnion found that people in their 20s today are taking home a salary of $45,500. Millennials are earning $51,852, or they were earning. Millennials were earning about $6,000 more when adjusted for inflation at their age. So if Gen Zs are making less money, no wonder they might be like, is it really worth it? Can Gen Zs afford their own apartment? Can Gen Zs afford college? Now, the way I did it, now I'm a Gen X. So the way I did it was I moved out when I was 18. I found places to live. I would pay to stay in the living room. I would pay, rent for a room. I don't even know who I lived with. There was a nice family on Washington and Rancho Boulevard, a very, very busy urban part of the city that was near the hospital I worked at, and they let me live in their backyard. That was, when I needed a place to stay, I found a place to stay. If I had to, huddle up some roommates, I did whatever I could so I could pay rent to try to keep my rent under a few hundred a month. Until I had my roommate. I had a great roommate in college, which was great. We found a great apartment, maybe not the best neighborhood, but we were able to make it work. I needed transportation. I walked, I bummed rides, and then I finally got a car that didn't have air conditioning. And then I worked multiple part-time jobs while going through school. Now, I know some Gen Zs who would do that, but many of the younger generations don't necessarily have to. They're not told that's what they have to do. Plus, they're not giving the option. So for me, I was very grateful to work at Jack in the Box. When I didn't have a car, there was a fast food place I could work at where I could go. I think I made $4 something an hour. It wasn't much, but I was able to get there because it's hard to have a job when you don't have transportation. But if I could walk there from my apartment, I made it work. Not the safest thing to do, walking back home at 11:30 at night, but I did what I could. And it was a struggle, but I made it work. But there were a lot of pieces, and there was a lot of steps and a lot of choreography for me to be able to support myself, get through school, maintain enough part-time employment so that if one job fell through, I at least had another way to support myself. I was skinny, didn't eat a lot. Thank God I went on a couple dates. That's where I had my meals with salad because the rest of my meals were top ramen. And, I pieced everything together. Well, we have taught the younger generations that you don't have to go through all that. If you want to go through school without having to work, you could do that. Just borrow money. And you might not even have to pay that money back. If you don't, want to drive, you don't have to. There's a lot of Gen Zs that don't drive. They don't have driver's licenses. They go, you can Uber. Somebody will drive you. We've changed the way society is. You don't necessarily have to live near campus because you could do school from home. You just have to have access to a computer. So I get things are different. But what I don't understand is how there's not that drive to want to support yourself, to want to build your resume, to want to get a form of education or training or trade. Me, I was scared to death that I wouldn't be able to support my family. And I was scared to death. And my mom did a fantastic job in terms of telling me about the reality of things, where you might get married, but he could abandon you. He could dump you. You need to know how to support yourself. You need to be able to get your own job. You need to be able to put food on the table because you might be, which, happened to many women in my family where they were abandoned and had to raise the kids by themselves. And I understand my personality. I'm not the easiest to stick around for. So, my mom was like, most likely, if you find somebody who wants to be with you, they're not going to want to hang around with you much longer. And so it was very scary for me because I felt like I'd be abandoned. And so I need to be able to support myself and stand on my own 2 feet. And that drive, not to mention the drive of I never want to be poor, I never want to be homeless, kept me working and working and working. The younger generation might not have that drive because we as Gen X's or baby boomers or older millennials may be providing for them, our younger brothers and sisters or step kids or kids, that safety net. But when you hear 20% of people are NEETs, where they're not educated, they're not doing a trade, they're not employed, how is society going to work? We need people putting tax dollars in. You can't be like where the government's like, well, let's just give people money and then that money will go into the system. Yeah, the money may go into the system with food and entertainment and all that, but we need tax dollars going into the system. And tax dollars only come from working people. So if we say it's okay that you don't work, remember, Ellis Island wouldn't let you emigrate to America if you didn't have a job, if you didn't have a sponsor, if you weren't going to be productive. We have to be productive. We look at the mental health issues of Gen Zs and the younger generation. If you don't have a purpose, if you don't have a drive, if your whole day is video games or staying at home or smoking weed, yeah, you're going to have mental health issues. I mean, I'm in a very good mood on most days because I can't wait to get up in the morning and get on air or see patients or deal with the family or walk the dog. I have a purpose. Another big purpose for people are their children. All right, that drives them to want to get a job and do things because they have children and they have mouths to feed. But we're also hearing Gen Z's not very hip on having babies. We are having slower birth rates because the idea of having a baby is too expensive. It's too overwhelming. And in Gen Z's defense, it's flipping ridiculous what things cost right now. There is no way I could do what I did based on the prices today if it was adjusted for, the 90s. There's no way. Everything is ridiculously priced. Not to mention we have this pressure that we have to buy an electric vehicle. You're telling a Gen Z who is struggling to pay for school, struggling to pay for rent, that they also have to eventually get an electric vehicle because it's mandated in their state? That's ridiculous. They're not rich. They don't have their own home and with their own outlets. We're doing things wrong. And we've been doing things wrong for a while. And the way the world is now is we got you. If you don't want to work or you don't want to, there's always a way. Just go to this, go to this agency or we'll help you here. Or, you might have to say it another way than I don't want to work. But I think it's not that the Gen Zs are just lazy. It's they don't have that drive. They don't have that motivation. I mean, when I was little, I always wanted to be Miss America. I always wanted to be an actress. I always wanted to be in show business. I always wanted to be a doctor. And I always wanted to be married and a mom. So I made that stuff happen. Yeah, I my husband could tell you, I made that happen. Yeah, it's because these are things I wanted. If the younger generation doesn't know what they want, if they can't see what their career looks like because it's such a cluster now with AI and tech, yeah. So we need to find their motivation. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So to stress or not to stress? That is the question. We very frequently urge that we all control our stress. We know stress is bad for your health. Could lead to heart attacks, stroke, high blood pressure, elevated blood sugar, increased cortisol, poor kidney function, liver function, poor sleep, poor mental health. And I have a lot of tips on how to help treat your stress. But when is stress good? Do we need stress? As we just spoke about, Gen Z's kind of not embracing adulthood, according to International Labor Organization, saying a fifth of them. And I had brought up, maybe it's the motivation. For me, it was the stress. I live on stress. I thrive on it. Not the best thing in the world, but that's what keeps me moving. My fear, my, concern that I won't have enough money for retirement, or I won't be able to support my family. And so when is stress good and when is stress bad? We have, for years, worked to minimize stress. We have taught employees to ask for stress-free days, to ask for time off, to make sure they have work-life balance. And we have, especially over the past few years, with COVID and working from home, don't worry, be happy. And it's a nice message. It's a very nice message, but is that doing us in? Stress is a defense mechanism. Stress is an instinct. And as we continually do, which I have argued against, is we do the pendulums, we do the extremes, no stress, super stress. I think there's a fine balance. I think you do need some stress. Look at what we tell you to do with your bones. If you are at risk for osteoporosis, what do we tell you to do? To increase weight bearing, to put some stress on those bones. Exercise. Because stress on the bones makes them work to be stronger. Now, if you have very fragile, full-blown osteoporosis and you're 97 years old, no. Okay, I'm not going to throw a weight ball at you. But if you're in your 40s or 50s or 60s and you're like, I think my bones are starting to thin, well, let's get out there and walk. Let's put some stress on the bones. Now, when you're in medical school, I'm really kind of curious as to how things are going. I've been hearing from students and teachers it's not going well. When you have this, don't panic. If you can't do your test, we'll come up with another way to test you. How do you do medical school and learn everything without there being consequences? If I'm going to fail a test, if I fail a test, I won't be able to be a doctor. So I need to do this right. Now, I again, find balance. I think it's ridiculous that everything is on a make or break. You have to do it, satisfy one test. I think there should be other ways to assess competency. But we are in education going the other way, where you don't even have to be competent. We're not even going to test you. We're hearing that in grade schools. Multiple school districts are starting to look at, we're going to get away from the standardized tests. All right, so then how are you rating competency? We're being told that many people are excelling and advancing in grades without actually academically showing proficiency. Well, what does that do? And so we've taken away from kids that you got a test, you got homework. I remember coming home with homework and my mom or dad saying, all right, we need you to do this. I go, I got homework. I got an assignment. And they were like, just do that. They saw that I was making priorities. I was not going to watch TV. I understand that Dallas is on. I think Friday night was like Dukes of Hazzard and Dallas. And then I think Monday night was MacGyver. I forget. Wednesday night might have been Moonlighting. I don't know what was on in the 80s. But I remember there were certain TV shows. Golden Girls was Saturday. I don't remember much else. But Family Ties, I think, was Thursday night. I watched Family Ties. Loved Michael Keaton. I loved him. And anyway. But I was stressed about making sure that I got things done. Now, I think some students overstress. I think they do have to, find a balance. But nowadays, are you doing your homework? Nah, I don't really need to. Well, you might fail. So what happens? Now, in the olden days, you had to deal with your parents. Okay, we've changed that. Thank God. You don't get beat by your parents, or you shouldn't be. We've tried to really limit the way, corporal punishment is done in families, for things. But we also have, many individuals who aren't necessarily parented all the time. So when the teacher's like, but you're going to fail, why didn't you do your homework? So what are you going to do about it? So if we're not teaching kids that they have deadlines, that they have priorities, then how are they going to get through a job? Stress also helps in medical situations. And I've seen people call in saying, you know what, I have a doctor's appointment. I haven't been really, really good about my diet. I haven't been good about this. I haven't been on my medicines. I need to, because they're worried about what their doctor is going to say. The less we are concerned about what people say and we don't give a damn and we don't, then where's that structure? Many people are now, foregoing religion. Religion can be very stressful. I know. Following the rules, being there for prayer and worship and the holidays and things like that. I went to Mass the last couple weekends. I'm Jewish. I go to Mass. I go to where I love religion. And so when my friends are like, hey, this is where we're going to go, I'll go with you. Very relaxed, very, you felt welcomed, but if you're going to do religion right, you need to, there's some responsibilities. And I enjoy doing those responsibilities. I enjoy making the sacrifices I need to make, fasting when I'm supposed to fast, saying the prayers I need to. But for other people, like, oh, it's just too much. And if it's too much, I'm not going to do it. Our species is in trouble if we don't want to do something that's too hard. And back in caveman days, if you didn't get out of your cave and hunt and gather, didn't matter what the weather was, didn't matter what wildebeests could chase you down, you wouldn't eat. And our bodies were designed to deal with that stress. And that stress is what made us survive. That's what motivated us. Now, you just go to the grocery store or the nearby fast food. Where's the hunt? So if we're not stressing for the food, we're not stressing for work, we're not stressing for, then why? How do we survive? How do we evolve? The reason why these viruses mutate and these bacteria become stronger is because there was a stress on them. These superbugs happen because they get assaulted with an antibiotic or something, and then if they survived it, they pick up the pieces, dust the dirt off their knees, and they have to become stronger. What are we doing to make our population stronger? Now, for some of us, the stress can overwhelm us, and we've talked about things that you could do. Exercise helps mitigate stress. Meditation, yoga, music, essential oils, being with friends, reading, things like that. But we need to have a conversation about good stress versus bad stress. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So we had some breaking news that came today. Former President Donald Trump's July 11th sentencing, which, boy, seemed to come up really, really fast. You know, they could sleep. The legal system seems to sleep on a lot of these other cases, but with Donald Trump, boy, did they want to jump on that pretty quickly. Apparently, the sentencing that's supposed to happen on July 11th for a 34-count conviction could be delayed now that the Supreme Court released its decision on partial immunity protections for those doing official business as a president versus unofficial business as a president. Now, the Manhattan DA's office, according to Daily Mail, said it will not oppose delaying sentencing Trump's lawyers moved to file a motion to overturn the verdict. Judge Juan Merchan is going to make the final decision, but both parties in agreement. So they, to jump to sentencing while now there's this, what's going on here, in terms of what protections does Trump have? It's likely to be pushed back. As you remember, a New York jury unanimously found Trump guilty on 34 counts of falsifying business records on May 30th for covering up a payment to porn star Stormy Daniels to keep her quiet before the 2016 election. Now, Trump says he's immune from prosecution for conduct alleged to involve official acts during his tenure in office. Now, I'm assuming that's once you are president, but I'm still kind of confused about the whole hush money thing because these hush money NDAs are so proliferative in business that I'm still kind of confused as to what the Trump case was about. And I'm also kind of confused at the protocol that took place. I thought a lot of Stormy Daniels' testimony was not supposed to happen, and it did, and so that was very, very confusing. But Trump's attorney sent a letter asking to set aside his conviction and delay his sentencing following the Supreme Court decision. Now, the Supreme Court said that yes, for official acts in office, he's immune, but not for unofficial acts. So now there's going to be a big debate on whether, certain, because he's set to be in court for multiple. I mean, they just keep throwing the book at him. And so the debate's going to be, but that's unofficial. That was on the side. That had nothing to do with being president. That had nothing to do with his office. So now there's going to be a big debate, and juries are going to have to decide, was this an official act or an unofficial act? Yeah, it's kind of a mess. But I do agree that the July 11th was a very, very rushed date. And so I think there does need to be a little bit more, clarification of what the heck is going on. And it's very stressful. I mean, you have half the country who wants President Trump to be our next president. And seeing these cases and these piling up and these convictions and also what's very, very confusing is when one of the reasons why our judicial system does these cases publicly, and these are public records, is society wants to educate the public on what is a crime and what isn't. You can't use I didn't know that was a crime defense. You're innocent until proven guilty. But if somebody isn't aware that something is a crime, it is on society to make sure that education is out there. And so part of the work that our judicial system needs to do and the courts need to do is to explain, look, you kill somebody, you murder somebody, that's a no-no. If somebody, claims you did something but doesn't have the proof, well, then they could be liable. And so people learn that, okay, this is what happens. They see years ago they had public hangings. I never want to see those again. But the reason why that would happen is to show society that those are the consequences for the certain crimes being done. When I hear people go, what did he do? What? Wait a second, what? It's confusing. Such as, when O.J. Simpson was convicted civilly for $34 million, for the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. Yet Trump, for his loan applications and his, claiming a property is worth a certain amount, which you guys do on Craigslist all the time when you try to sell your lamps. That was a $455 million settlement? See, people get confused. We don't want confusion. I keep bringing up our democracy's at risk because if people think something's not fair or there's two paths and of justice, depending on what side of the political aisle you're on, that makes people nervous. So if a murder in the 90s, and I get, from the 90s to today, I get there's inflation, but if that's 34 million versus appraising the value, or although I thought the banks agreed with his appraisal, and again, I could be confused, but still $455 million judgment. Okay, people get confused. And in fact, I think the New York governor had to tell business owners in New York that, look, this isn't about you guys. This is about Trump. Because then everybody else is like, oh my gosh. Now what? Because once a precedent is set in the legal system, then, because again, the judicial system is supposed to be fair, then anybody can get a $455 million charge or suit thrown at them. That it's frightening. And so people need some, assurance that the legal system and the judicial system is being done right. And law, I never went into law because it's difficult enough to go through medicine and keep up on all the medical nuances and the new drugs and the new treatments. It's a lot. But I really commend my fellow doctors who also got a JD in law, because many doctors are asked to be expert witnesses, and law is an art. It's an amazing field. I respect lawyers who do their job ethically and right. But part of the art of law is looking at, okay, wait a second, if I'm hitting a wall, what else in legal precedents can I use to get around this wall? And it's semantics, it's mental gymnastics, it's, and unfortunately, that's how people, criminals get off, but it's also how innocent people get to prove their innocence. It's not a perfect system, but it's a system we have. It shouldn't be wielded inappropriately. And when somebody is campaigning, saying they're going after somebody, that makes your, democracy weaker. Somebody violated the law. If somebody killed somebody, somebody stole. If somebody blatantly did something that it's obvious, but when it's, I don't know, I'm just very confused as to what's going on, and I can't explain the charges to people. I'm sure there's some legal experts that would love to, but so, and when it comes to, our possible next president, when our current commander-in-chief is faltering, we really need to be spending the focus right now on who is going to be best to lead our country and to get us out of the mess we're in. And that needs to be our focus, and it just doesn't seem to be. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Apparently, there is a listeria prompted recall for dog and cat food. I'm going to talk about that in the next hour. 1-877-DOC-DALI. Don't go away.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.